功有幾深？出招！如果我輸俾你嘅話，我今日跪喺度拜你為師。睇到我功夫咧，試我腳法啊！你個劍術只係屬一般業餘嘅水平。殘廢比你強，再嚟啊！廢物！
Streets is watching.
Was, okay, March 31st, 1492, the Jews were expelled from Spain. And this is just, 6 months before Columbus goes to America. And April 1st, they don't talk about it, but what happened on April 1st, according to tradition in Spain, is that they told all the Moors, they said, we've kicked out the Jews, and you're friends of the Jews, you can go. We've got ships waiting for you, you can go back to Morocco. you've lost the war in Spain, but we'll let you go. And so they said, we don't believe you. Well, they saw there were ships waiting for them. So they left. And while they left, in between going to their ships, they burned their houses and burned the ships. So they were homeless. This was on April 1st, 1492. This becomes April Fool's Day. Ha ha ha. You've been fooled. This is a denigration of the Moors, which is by the Catholic Church. And there was the siege of Granada, where they built the town of Santa Fe. Isabella burned down their little huts. They were just doing a stakeout on Granada, because Granada was landlocked, or so to speak, the mountain. They just waited to starve them out. And they built a little town, burned down. So they built a new town made of stones and had a cross, and it was called Santa Fe. And there was the capitulation of Santa Fe, where a treaty was signed. And I haven't seen this treaty, but apparently I'm told it was a capitulation. It was not, the Moors allowed, I can't prove this, but according to my friend tALLAHassee, they allowed the Catholic Church or the Spanish government. And when I first heard of Noble Drew Ali in connection with this experiment on his map, I said, this guy sounds like a mythological character. He had a father who was a slave. He was from North Carolina. His mother died young, as did his father. When he was young, he lived with an aunt who would beat him. He had paranormal abilities. At a young age, he supposedly became a merchant seaman or stowed away and went to Egypt. When he went to Egypt, he ended up amongst a group of masters who recognized him. They saw him. We were waiting for him. So they initiated him into the Great Pyramid. They took him into the pyramid blindfolded and said, work your way out. Not necessarily expecting the aspirant to live. And when they found him, he got out almost immediately. They were surprised, and they found him between the paws of the Sphinx. And the paws of the Sphinx are very symbolic. It's the cradle of knowledge. Many ways I can tell you, which we won't go into. But Noble Drew Ali was sent on a mission back to America, where he was from, to teach the Moorish people their true heritage. And he taught that there were Moors in America before there were what we know as Native American Indians, and that this history has been obscured and robbed. And it's not only robbed the so-called black people, it's robbed the white people. It's robbed everybody, because the knowledge is what's lost, And it's almost, you have humanity enslaving its best, taking the best part of itself and cutting it off. Which is, if you look at human beings in general, if the roles were reversed, they might have done the same thing. You know what I'm saying? It's just like the human condition is such that let's choke off the knowledge. But anyway, that's what happened. And Noble Drew Ali lived in the 1900s and the 20s, and he became very popular. He was very charismatic, very gifted. And Elihu Pleasant Bay wrote this book, Noble Drew Ali. Spent a great deal of his life. He knew one of Noble Drew Ali's wives. He had more than one wife. And he was very popular in the 20s. And he was so popular, he became quite a problem to the government, because he was lifting the black communities up, and in a way that they weren't used to being lifted up. He wasn't using Christianity. He was using his own brand of Islam. And of course, it was shocking to me as I began to actually read the history, find out that he had a whole FBI file. They were bird dogging him. And then, there was a lot of power surrounding him. He went into the police took him in. They arrested him. They let him go. But he died mysteriously. Now, some people say it was from the police, that he had a police beating, which L.A. Pleasant Bay says that was not true. He just died. And he said the reason that he died was because the burden on the Moors people was too great. He could do more from outside of the body than inside the body. Insight that he was one of the people influencing my synchronicities from the outside. That was quite a moment, an aha moment. And he has a grave, I believe, in Chicago. I'm not real sure about that, if it's still there or not, but he lived in Chicago at that point. He was from Newark, in earlier North Carolina. But the interesting thing about Noble Drew Ali is that as I began to study him, the whole TV show, first it was a radio show of Amos and Andy, was designed to lampoon Noble Drew Ali and the Moors Science Company. Because I don't know how many of you have seen Amos and Andy. I saw it as a kid in the 50s, wasn't really interested in it, didn't like it because the character was always having a hard time. He was always getting the butt end of the joke. I didn't think it was too nice. But what he was, is that the main character was Kingfish.
But it was funny as hell, though. It was a funny show.
Yeah, well, I was too young to get the funny stuff.
Yeah.
I
started watching later on as time.
Oh, it would be hilarious now.
Yeah.
But I didn't get it. I mean, I was young. I'm just watching this getting the ass into them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't understand the stereotyping humor. I don't understand anything. It was said in the 20s that the black people loved it just as much as the white people. Okay? It was just funny. It was funny. But he was the Kingfish, and he had his Order of the Mystic Knights of the Sea. Now that's the Moors. The Moors are the best.
That was in the show?
Yeah, Order of the Mystic Knights of the Sea. He belonged to the Order of the Mystic Knights of the Sea. And they had the head jellyfish and the head mackerel, and the congregation were called sardines. This is really funny. But they were lampooning the real Moorish Science Temple, which Drew Ali had set up. And they had one episode where they had Ali Bendo, this crystal gazer who was arrested. You see? It was like they were mocking the Moorish Science Temple. Now, what's interesting is about why I said, who was sponsoring this? It turned out to be, it was Pepsi. And I found out I studied the whole history of Pepsodent, and the guy, it was I put it in the book, it's bizarre, all the connections with Pepsodent, and why it relates to teeth and whatnot. But Amos and Andy was the first syndicated show in the history of broadcasting. It got syndicated was football. Red Grange and all that, those days in the 20s. Not even baseball had been syndicated at that point. It was Amos and Andy. And it was a Masonic duo that had done this. They were Freemasons, high-level Freemasons, and they created this very funny show, which was so nobody could possibly take Moorish science seriously. And black people in general would be lampooned. And if you even watch the Hollywood movies of those era, and the way black people were portrayed, even beyond the step invention, it is just, nobody would do that now, unless they were just making fun of it, Eddie Murphy or somebody. But it's like, it was in such a way that white people could not take a black person seriously. And having grown up in a community where you were told that, my mother said that, no, they don't, I said, why don't black people live here? She said, they steer them away. In other words, they steer, it was called steering. And it was just, she explained it to me. And the attitudes of the people were such that, no, they weren't to be taken seriously. They was something you would talk about too much. But, so, when you make fun of something, and they were making fun of Drew. Now, what's interesting about Noble Drew Ali is that most people don't know that out of his death arose a man called Wally Fard. And Wally Fard has an FBI file and a very obscure lineage. Like, he seems to come from Polynesian blood in him. He seems to have some white blood in him. He doesn't seem to have any black blood in him. He might, but he doesn't seem to. Yet he becomes the head of this Moorish Science Temple. And then he picks Elijah Muhammad to be the head of the new reorganization, which is the church, what do they call it? Church of Islam. Nation of Islam. Not church, yeah. Nation of Islam. So you find, when you find out about the Nation of Islam, they do know that they had Noble Drew Ali as their original founder.
State that anyone wishing to join the Order of the Luminescent Llamas must first survive the 4 treacherous trials. And I'll make sure that you don't. Let the initiation commence.